It's been a minute since I have actually sat here for a live stream, but what is going on, people? We are here talking about the seasonal anime stuff. This technically is the final summer anime discussion, right? Like, this is the last one, because after this week we're officially going to be in October, which we'll have 10 anime we'll talk about, because I'm insane and I want to jump into actually talking about stuff. On top of stuff that will not have finished, because despite us, we don't have much anime to talk about. That will change, and we'll have 10 whole new anime to talk about. But at least this time around, we have only 3, because Alya finished last week, along with my friend Nokotan. And now we have the last episode of Mayonaka Punch, the last episode of the Nier Automata anime, and not the last episode, but the second to last episode of Oshi No Ko. Which, I mean, I guess I won't give a ranking on this one, just because it's like there's not really a ranking for me to give. I mean, there is. I can do a ranking if I, if I really wanted to, but there's like kind of not really point in me doing it right now. So it's just going to be a normal wrap up at the end of this. And the stream honestly won't be that long either, since we're only going to be talking about the 3. However, there is a lot to talk about all of them. Mayonaka Punch. But I guess we will get into it. What is the first? Oshi No Ko. Let me kind of remember what happened for this one. See, this is what happens when I don't write my notes down. I didn't want to write notes, so I was like, it's only like 3 episodes, I can remember it. But no, this is what happens when I don't write all my notes down. I don't remember things. So note to self, no matter if I'm doing 1 anime, 3 anime, 5 anime, 10 anime, I need to write shit down. Shit, I ain't gonna lie, y'all gonna have to give me a second to try to remember shit. Okay, I remember. Jesus, Lord in heaven, I finally remember. It took me a minute, but I do actually remember. So, Oshi No Ko, this first episode starts off... hella dark, Jesus. Okay, sorry. This first episode starts off with the new Konbichi, with Kana, Memo-chan, and Ruby, right? We get all of them as they finally got back their first original song back, which everyone seems to be pretty happy with. It sounds pretty good. Kana does make a remark that, like, oh yeah, it sounds good, because I guess the dude who made the song either added some vocals or like got somebody to sing it to show how it's supposed to sound, which I don't know if that's normal practice and how it's supposed to go, but I mean, I guess that works. I mean, if you're writing the whole song for them, that does sort of kind of make sense for the most part. Kana does remark that the Ruby singing is going to be kind of rough because, they're not the greatest singers, but they do mention that they will pull it off somehow. And so, like, the whole beginning, basically them comparing with, like, Memo-chan and Ruby on the phone with Memo-chan's friend who has the warehouse over in, I think it was Miyazaki. It's like, basically, everyone's just kind of prepping everything for the most part. After all that, we get to see them all start gathering in, like, the airport area, yeah. Where we see Kana interacting with Aqua and being like, oh yeah, I get to spend some time with Aqua finally. It's gonna be some R&R, we're gonna have a good session. Only to see that Akane is there. And obviously Kana's getting a little bit upset. She sit there and she's just like, why is I here? She's not supposed to be here. Like, this is supposed to be our trip. But, like, Aqua just bring up, like, this. It's like, yeah, but this was supposed to be an R&R from Tokyo Blade, and she was part of a Tokyo Blade, so she's come. Also, this was your idea as well. So, whatever. And she's like, I know it was, but fucking, goddamn it. I didn't know this. I thought they did already, but I guess Ruby and Akane met for the first time? That was actually really interesting. I sat there, I was just like, oh, this is their first time meeting each other. I didn't know that. I thought originally they, like, met at some point during the drama that they were doing with Akane and Aqua, but I guess they didn't. So it was very weird. It was very weird, like, seeing the interaction for the very first time, because I swear to God I thought they did, but I guess, I guess that wasn't the case, of course. So yeah, everyone's there at the airport. They all start heading over to Miyazaki, flying over there. And also, forgive me, I'm also a little bit under the weather, so you're gonna hear a lot of phlegm coming from me. But Akane, all of them, not but all of them, finally touch down in Miyazaki, where they meet up with Memo-chan's friend. I'm gonna close my window. Give me a second. I didn't want to close my window, but unfortunately I have to. But yeah, they all touch down in Miyazaki finally, and when that happens, they meet up with Memo-chan's friend, where they all sit there, kind of like going through what they need to do, all that stuff. And so I guess the plan is to record all day today, right? And then the next 2 days are just going to be kind of like an R&R, relaxing type of situation. So while Aqua, Kana, and Memo-chan are all away going to record with Memo-chan's friend at the warehouse, they do a little bit of like in-person recording. I'll get this part out of the way just because it's like super quick. So they're off. You see a scene of Ruby and Memo-chan being recorded, eating some stuff, trying to be cute. Memo-chan's friend, I thought I turned you off, phone, but I guess not. So go over there. We see a little bit of like Memo-chan's friend going and giving them not a little cool, but giving them like cute little shots where she's just like, oh yeah, obviously it's going to be a music video and we're going to have dancing in it, but we also want to accentuate how like cute you could be, you know, how like adorable like the new Ichi could be. And so they're trying to like get like super cute shots of them eating and then doing stuff. That's kind of off to the side, but eventually Memo-chan's friend's like, no, come on, we need you too, you're part of the membership. It kind of does give a very cute face to where she's like, nope, we need to record more of this look, more of this cuteness from this girl. She has a natural cuteness to her. You're like, let's see, give her this, give her that, give her all that stuff. And so those girls are going out there doing that stuff. Akane and Aqua, obviously, they're not part of the whole shooting thing, so they actually take the time to go ahead and like see. They like take the time to go ahead and like look around all over the place. And so Aqua uses this time actually to go basically to all the places that like his old self used to be. So I know at one point, I think they go to the hospital. Yeah, at one point, yeah. So the first place that they go to is the hospital, I think, where he asks specifically for, oh, I forgot his own name. It was like Amayami or something like that. I don't know if that was the exact name he was, but he goes to ask for Amayami, which was his old self. And he goes and he's just like, oh, you know, yeah, let me see if he's here. Only to, you know, kind of think like, right, you know, it's been like, what, like almost, he's 17 right now. So it's almost been 20 years, been 15 years, over 15 years since all the events of that night actually occurred. So like, obviously there's going to be a rotation of staff that like might not know who he is and all that stuff. And so obviously the nurse comes back being like, oh yeah, he was put down as resigning like over 15 years ago. And so he's like, okay, that makes sense. And so, like, they walk away, Akane, still not knowing anything, but definitely knowing more of the situation and more people than, like, any other person in terms of, like, you know, Ruby and Aqua. And she goes ahead and she asks, is like, oh, yeah, like, did you know that person? It's like, yeah, he was a really good friend of mine. I just wanted to make sure if I could see him. And he does get a thought. He does get a passing thought. And he's just like, hold on. I want to go check something. And so they go and I think it was, who was it? I think it was Akane who was like, oh yeah, we can like go and see like what you were trying to look for. And Aqua goes to the cliff in which he was first murdered. Looking over and, you know, he's playing it cool for Akane, trying to not reveal too much but revealing enough. Akane obviously not fully picking up on it, but, you know, this I could give a bit of a pass because it's just like, you probably don't want to look too deep into the stuff, obviously. Obviously, she doesn't know about the whole reincarnation and stuff like that, so that completely makes sense. But Aqua is, like, looking over the cliff that she died, and he's like, and she, like, they bring up a good question. They're like, hey, listen, let's say, like, a pet were to die out into the forest, right? There we go, they were to die in the forest. Like, fall off the cliff or something like that. Do you think, like, after a really long time, their body would still be there? Or do you think, like, you know, it'd be kind of a hopeless endeavor? Akane does go and explain. It's like, well, if it was buried, then obviously it would have decayed, but the bones would most likely still be there, and you could still find some semblance. But when it comes to, like, if the body just, like, fell, or if it just, like, was left on top of the ground, at some point, the nearby animals would have picked it off, and it would have decayed, and like the bones would have been taken by other random animals and such, and like just the nature itself would have taken its course, and it would have everything of the body would have been so scattered it would have been legitimately impossible to find. And so he's like, okay, that's fair. Probably also not good to just dig up a dead. Not a good idea to dig up a dead guy's grave. And so he kind of leaves that area being like, oh yeah, whatever. And so the final place he goes to, which, before I bring that up, we do see the silver-haired girl again. The one that I brought up was in the opening and was at the very, very end of episode, this is 23, so episode 21, where it's like just her just standing there. Now, I don't know, right? Because there's certain things in this episode that make me think, whatever. But this episode also there is a lot of God talk in this episode, where I think Memo-chan's friends bringing up that like there's a shrine nearby that all the celebrities in Japan go to, because that god, she's like the god of like song and entertainment. So it's just like, oh yeah, they pray to her to try to get like good faith and good fortune. And then I think Agane brings up a different god, or it was something about Amaterasu or something like that. But there's a lot of talk about gods and the intellect and the whatnot, right? And so what I originally thought was just another offspring of the father of Aqua and Ruby, I now kind of have suspect that creature might be the god that reincarnated them. That I will admit is a bold ass fucking claim, and I have no basis on that whatsoever. I can tell you that right now. I have no proof, no basis, no anything like that to prove or to say that this was actually the girl. Like, it could be, it could not be. I have no fucking clue, if I'm being completely honest. But there was just a bit too much. There was a bit too much God talk for me in terms of like, hinting and not hinting at certain things. Ooh, no, let's send you out, Jesus. But yeah, there was a bit too much God talk for me. And so that's why I sat there and I'm just like, you could be the offspring, but as far as we know right now, there is no actual like straight relation. No, but don't do that. But we haven't seen any true connection to her and the father. So that actually might be the god that reincarnated them. Now, for what purpose, I have no clue. But that's going to be my basis. And potentially, given how this goes, I don't know how I feel about that. But we'll get to that towards the end. Because I'll talk more about it once we have all the pieces out. But the final place they go to, which is what I assumed was Amayami, I think his name was, now Aqua. I was just going to say Aqua's former life because I don't know the name and that's a lot easier. But we thought that Aqua's former life, I thought they were going to his house, but it seems like that was actually his grandparents' place in his former life. And he explains where he's just like, oh yeah, we get like, I don't know if they mention it in like the beginning at all, or in the first season, but we get a little bit of Aqua's former life backstory, where when he was born, his mother had a hemorrhage, I think it was, and so she bled out. Father was in the picture, so he was kind of left with no parents, and so he was given to the grandparents in order to be taken care of. Grandmother obviously loved Aqua, but the grandfather did have a bit of spite because of his birth, his daughter died. So there was always somewhat sort of that resentment, which is like, I think is a bit unfair, if I'm being honest, to hold a kid to that, where it's like they didn't really have that choice in the matter, so why push them into that route? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'm sitting there being like, that's a tad extra, friend. That's a bit tad, slightly, particularly extra, but that's neither here nor there. So, while they're doing that, right? They do that, they go to those three little spots, and eventually they finally meet up with everyone at the warehouse that they were at recording all the dances for the music video. Akane walks into Memo-chan, they have a discussion. Memo-chan's having her, like, you know, I'm getting old aspect because she's just like, oh, you're not recording with them? And it's just like, oh no, they're doing their stuff first because I guess legally in Japan, you can't work till after 10 p.m., but obviously if you're an adult, you can do that. And so Memo-chan's just having this like funny little breakdown. She's just like, yeah, because I'm an adult, I get to work late. Isn't that great? It's like, oh man, oh. I mean, I feel it, but man, it hurts. Man, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie. But they're doing their recording, and I guess Ruby's doing like her part only in solo dance. Kana comes out in her little like cute strawberry outfit, trying to flaunt it for oh wow, I forgot his name. Jesus Christ. Trying to flaunt it for Aqua, being like, hey, do you think I'm cute? Do you think I look nice? And then Akane has that evil look, not evil look, but that just like that dark-eyed, dead-eyed look of just like of like major disapproval towards something, of just like, it's like, no, it's all wrong. It's all fucking wrong. And so she starts like adjusting Kana's little outfit, which again, I like their pairing because obviously they have some form of rivalry, but it's obvious that like to an extent, they kind of care for each other. Not in the way that you would like think, right? Like not like in a super obviously caring way, but obviously I think even though they're rivals and even though they want to be better than each other, I do think that both want to succeed and want both. What are the words I'm talking about? I do think Kana and Akane both want each other to succeed despite being rivals, because we've seen it a lot, and after the play, there's just no way, right? That would have to be the case. You need to go, Jesus Christ. But yeah, that would just have to be the case because I don't see that not happening in like no way whatsoever, right? And so like that's happening. She's kind of like a little embarrassed, but she's like, okay, how does it look now? And she's like, well, I suppose, but I guess it gets a passing grade. Kind of just awkward. It's like, well, I don't know. What do you do? I get it. This is the same thing. I'm like, it's just like, it gets a passing mark. It's like, what the fuck, you bro? I also didn't know this as well, but they mentioned it while all this is happening. Apparently, Akane does not approve of Kana being an idol, because I would assume it's more of just it's either her being like, you're an actor, that's what you're doing and you're running away from it, or it might be the fact of just like, in general, she might be looking at people being like, actually that's not true given what we know later, so it might be this thing of just like, yeah, you wanted to be an idol because you're running away from acting, don't do that, I don't approve of that, go fuck yourself, right? But yeah, Akane does not approve of Kana being an idol whatsoever. But as Akane and Aqua sit down, and Memo-chan, Ruby, and Kana are recording, Akane has a conversation where I think Akane does at least have a feeling of just like, hey, like, you know, like you want Kana to succeed, right? You want her to be popular as an idol. And Aqua's like, yeah, you know, I do think that she'll be successful, and I do think that she'll doing it. It's like she's enjoying it, and she's good at what she does. So I do think that she'll succeed and she'll go far. Akane tells him the brutal truth. It's like, if that's the case, you can't be with Akane like you have been. And she brings up the fact that Kana's been, you know, blabbering and boasting and talking about the fact that her and Aqua had a dinner date at the Brazilian steakhouse, where she's going on and she's just like, yeah, she was telling me all about it, how you guys were at the Brazilian steakhouse, how you were doing that. But you got to remember, like, you're out in the open. And, like, people do not like when idols have boyfriends and idols are like that. You actually have to be extremely careful how the fuck you're going about everything you're doing, because right now it is not working whatsoever, or it's like it's not going to work in the future. And she also brings up the fact that it's like, you can get away with it now because the new Ichi is technically despite using the name Bikumi, is an underground like act. Not many people know about them, don't know about their existence. But they do, but not on like the superstardom level, right? But she doesn't mention like, if it keeps going and if it gets hyper and she gets to that level, you can't be seen with her because she's going to see you, because someone's going to see you, the tabloids are going to take that picture, and that's going to ruin the entire career. Because, unfortunately, it is kind of true when it comes to idols. And just like a lot of content creation in general, if like at least for female characters, female content creators and female just artists in general, if they see you with knowing that you have a husband and knowing that you're locked down in some of the way, it's so jover. It's actually insane. It's actually insane how like how bad that could be when like someone who is perceived to be single and just doing this themselves, they find out that they're in a relationship, or they get into a relationship, like they were actually single but finally get to it, and just like how much their stock actually plummets because it's like, oh well, now you're unavailable, and like it plays into the whole thing of just like, did you actually think you were ever going to be with that person? Like they don't fucking know you. It's like they don't know who you are and they don't know how you act, and it plays into the whole toxicity of just not only Japan's just like toxic idol culture, but just toxic like just bad parasocial relationships in general. It just brings up that fact of just like, this is all not good. And it also leads to the fact that Aqua brings up like, yeah, if I actually date her or if I get close to her and I hang out with her like I have been right now, she actually might end up like and we do get a really uncomfortable visual of like the I death scene, but with Kana, and it's just like, oh no, I don't want that. That looks bad. That looks awful. That looks god awful. I don't like this. I don't want this. This doesn't look fun. I mean, that's never fun, but you know what I mean. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel awesome. It just doesn't. But yeah, they have that conversation. Eventually, a little after that, after all that, they finally stop recording. All the, not teens, but Ruby and Kana, who are underage, now that it's 10 p.m., are now allowed to leave and they get to relax. Memo-chan, unfortunately, is not underage, so she's staying with her friend to record her part and do all that good fucking shit. I also forgot how much Strawberry Productions is paying for this, but I know it was I want to say it was somewhere upwards to like the millions of yens, which I forget the conversion rate for that, but I want to say it's like 100 grand. Don't take my word for that. I don't know conversion rates very well when it comes to fucking, what do we call that? Money. Yeah, I don't know if conversion rates that well when it comes to money. But Aqua's staying back with Memo to watch like Memo-chan and the rest of the recording, and so asked if Akane could take Ruby, especially since Ruby is excited, and also has been calling her big sis, since like, I guess Ruby is still under the assumption that Akane and Aqua are still dating, but they broke up. But I don't know if they broke up like entertainment wise, but if they broke up actually, what? I'm no longer 100% sure what the relationship status is between Aqua and Akane. But it's like Ruby is under the assumption that Akane and Aqua are still dating, but Akane and Aqua both leave. They both head out, and like they're having their own conversations. Her talking about like, you know, oh yeah, me and my brother were both raised in Miyazaki. Well, not raised, but we were both born in Miyazaki. We had a little bit of a raise. Akane tells Ruby that like, yeah, he told me a little bit about like, you know, your life so far. I forget how much she reveals that she knows, but I know she at least told them about like their life in Miyazaki. And so she starts going out there explaining their stuff. This is all happening, by the way, when she sees the crow. And the crow, for some reason, takes like her pen and then flies away with it, which I thought was just like, oh, they're probably just like finding they're just gonna have their own time away from the log. That's not what happens, but we'll get into what actually happens, because they're having that discussion while they're walking. Ruby actually does reveal, talking about like why she's becoming an idol and why she wants that, and that's because for what she assumed is Amayami, who is now Aqua, is still alive, still out there, and she's hoping if she becomes a big enough star, she can actually like show that like, oh yeah, I'm like alive in some way, and like Amayami can come and it's just like, oh yeah, I love being Komichi, because obviously we get another flashback. There's a couple of flashbacks, but it's important for this. It's important for this one because we get a flashback of in her last moments, Sarina, who is now Ruby, gives Amayami the keychain that she got from like one of the gacha machines. And so what she's hoping is that like if she becomes big enough with the new Bikomichi, he'll be a fan of it and then go see her in like a meet and greet and have the chain. And at that point he's just like, I know who you are, it's me, oh my fucking god, like I want to be with you and shit like that. But she's just like, it was like, oh yeah, wait till you're 16, I guess, which I get. I mean, that might be the legal age of Japan, but it's like, oh, wait till I'm 16. I'm like, no, well, fuck it. You know, it's fine, it's okay, I guess. I mean, not really, but fuck. I mean, don't tell cultures, right? Don't tell cultures, but fuck. But yeah, that's just like a bit weird to me. I'm like, okay, I see where we're going with this. Fuck. So, well, yeah, so, like, she's explaining that, and, like, it's funny, because she also asked the question, too, of just, like, oh, yeah, Akane, what do you think of, like, age gaps? Do you think, like, they're bad? Like, do you think it's really bad? But Akane supports her in that. It's like, yeah, I hope you find your man, and I hope you, do that stuff. And so, she goes so far for these keys, which, to be fair, I think are the keys to the inn that they're staying, which is, like, fair. I'm not trying to be charged for that. No, that's going to be expensive. But they find out that there's like a little, like the crow goes into like a little hideout that's like in the tunnel. And so as they're walking, trying to find the key, it seems like the crow actually led them to somewhere, leading them to like a place in the tunnel where they find a body, or at least the skeleton of a body. Hey guys, I know this is happening kind of abruptly, but unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but my stream for the Osho No Ko part kind of just fell apart, and honestly the whole stream fell apart. Luckily I have the rest of the recording because I was smart to press the recording button, so I have the rest of the recording and everything is fine, everything is good. But I will now be going over the rest of Osho No Ko, but it'll go back to the normal stuff next time, so I'm just inserting this real quick. So yes, the skeleton that they do find does belong to Ana, what is the name again? Ana Miyami. It belongs to Aqua's past self, basically. And Akane tries to get Ruby away from it, but Ruby obviously freaking out, knowing who it is, and we see the keychain on the skeleton. She realizes that it is him, and so it is a sad moment. It is a very, very sad moment for her. You also see this cool thing that they do, where you see the last scene of it, the last scene of the actual show is her eyes. They're slowly dwindling away, which is really, really sad because Ruby's eyes is the only one I think that hasn't really changed. Other than this season, since there was that one moment, all the way back when they were doing the play, when Ruby was getting confronted about her brother potentially doing sexual things, Ruby's eyes actually darkened for the first time we've ever seen in the show, and that confronted that person being like, no, my brother wouldn't do such things, my brother isn't like that. And so this is only the second time we've seen something of that negative nature actually happen with Ruby, which is really, really sad to see, honestly, especially since Amayami was one of the only people who she was doing this for. One was for Ai to live out Ai's dream, and the other one for Amayami, which is really, really sad. But the big thing coming out of this, because that was basically the end of the episode, was the few couple of things I wanted to bring up is there's the silver-haired girl that we have seen in this episode. We've seen her talk now, making like vocal stuff. I was originally thinking she was a sibling of Ruby and Aqua and potentially a child that the father still had in contact with. I don't think that might be the case anymore. That might just be a spirit and or the god that reincarnated the both of them. So we'll have to see about that. There's one more answer. There's one more episode to answer all those questions. So hopefully that will come up. And then the other big thing was I wanted to know how Ruby is going to be coming out from this. Whether the episode's going to revolve around her going through that falter of losing someone that she wanted to find. And she did find him, but in the most negative sense possible. And potentially going ahead and not wanting to do the new stuff anymore. Or if this is going to like kind of switch places. Where, personally for me, the thing that I'm kind of wanting to see is maybe the latter. See how Ruby does in a change of state with her wanting to maybe find out the killer. The only reason why I don't think that's the best course of action is potentially there's not really much to go off of, especially after 15 years of just nothing really happening. So that one just kind of doesn't make sense logistically. So I think the former, where she will be more depressed and maybe not want to do anymore, I could see that being the reason most likely. I could see that being the direction they go down in a sense, and Aqua and everyone else having to rekindle that fire for her to want to try to continue that. Now, whether that is something that happens in the next episode or something that happens in a third season, we will have to see. But I did really like this episode. I liked everything it set up. I like seeing more Ruby. Again, I mentioned the fact that I wanted more Ruby at some point in the season, and we are getting more Ruby, so that makes me super excited. But yeah, I give this a 9 out of 10. Sorry that this was so weird. Obviously, I'm trying to fix my stream stuff as much as possible. But we should be going back to our regularly scheduled program after this, so you can go back. But now that we're done with Oshi No Ko, let's talk about the Nier Automata version 1.18. I've been building Nier Automata at this point. I know I'm late to saying that, but this is easier. But Nier Automata, the final episode. The final episode for this, and I was very excited of it because I wanted to know how they were going to approach this. What ending we were going to explore. I say what ending we're going to explore. I knew what ending they were going to explore. They were going to explore the true ending. There's no way you're not making the anime and giving us the ass ending. That would be insane. Genuinely would be an insane situation. YouTube title. But I more or less wanted to see how they were going to handle it, since the way they do it in the video game is very video game-esque. And it's not like that for the anime. So I was wondering how they were going to approach it. So, from the way I remember it in the video game, I swear it was the thing above A2 and 9S killing themselves. Not in the sense of like, oh, they both suicide, but as they're fighting, they both just like die. I don't remember if it's the way how to play it out, but I like it if this was the case. Oh no, maybe actually. I don't know. I don't remember. Do I? Oh, you're gonna have to give me a second. I'm not gonna lie. Alright, my apologies. I had to actually like look back at the game because I sat there and just like, hold the fuck. How did this actually like play out? Because I remembered it a little differently, like in my mind, and I was just like, okay, hold on a second. So it plays out like a certain way, but I don't actually fully like actually remember the actual breakdown of how everything plays out. Yada yada yada. So the anime does change a little bit, a little bit, right? So like the fighting is obviously way more intense. Where you have like, there's still parts that are similar, cutting off 9S's arm, all that stuff. But the fight's just a bit more intense. Apparently, 9S is the one that does the hacking in the anime, but I think A2 does the hacking in the video game. And it also makes sense because both in the video game and the anime, they both, the pod 053 or 052, whatever the fuck that pod is, does give A2 the ability to hack, or it gives her like permission to have hacking abilities. So it makes sense in the video game, but for 9S in this situation, he actually goes for hail and trying to hack into her, where like she's looking at all of his memories and stuff like that and about to attack her in his system. But obviously that doesn't work. No, it does work. He's like touching her memories, and he's just like, you know, he's completely gone into the disparity part. But the pod is helping out A2, trying to break through his hacking, finding some weakness, and eventually does just straight up kill A2. We do get a similar thing though, where it is A2 on a bed where his like remaining data is, and there is a way to save him, but not these fucking names. 9S is on a bed, and there is a way to, I think, salvage him, but it'd be very, very difficult. A2 does end up making that sacrifice. The added addition, though, is that apparently, so in the game, the robots don't approach you like they do to A2 in the anime. Or at least from what I've seen and from what I remember, that was not the case. What happens in the anime, though, is that as you know, she sees 9S and being like, maybe there's a way to help him, stuff like that. All the robots, including Adam and Eve, who make an appearance all over again, basically do this thing where, so like I said before, the consciousness, just like in the video game, In the last episode, they were fighting against each other, being like, no, we need to destroy the moon, we need to erase every remnants of humanity. But the other consciousness sat there and it's like, but I want to live. I want to start a whole new life, a whole new frontier on a different planet where we don't have to worry about fighting, where we don't have to worry about all these things, where we don't have to worry about like this and that. And so the consciousness fights, and it seems like the one who wants to live ends up winning. And actually approaches A2 being like, listen, I get it, like, you want to destroy us, and honestly being destroyed by your hands is an acceptable way to die. But we do have this chance to actually, like, live how we want to. Live without restraints, live without the Yoha Project, live and find our own purpose rather than being given a purpose and it's stripping away from us. We can find our own reason that we can hold on to forever. A2 makes the decision, though, to not do that, and rather, in a sense, giving 9S somewhat of a chance, even though he's dead, somewhat of a chance, to live on without her. And so, at this point, the robots are all shot up into the moon. They're going to do their own thing. A2 is dead. 9S is dead. At this point, there is no living beings on Earth. Like, there is still animals, still other, like, beings and all that stuff. But as far as everything else, things like conscious beings like the robots or humans or the androids, they're not really no longer on the planet. Now, this is the part I actually wanted them to know. And I will say, if you have not played Automata, please play it, because what I'm about to explain is actually quite a big spoiler. Now, I'm just going to get that right now. And I do try to get spoilers when I can. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about animes that you guys haven't reached or talked about. There's no way to do it without spoiling it, so I do it. But for this instance, I would say, if you don't want to know about it, I would suggest definitely skipping ahead. I don't know if I'll have a timestamp below or not. Or mute the stream if you guys want to for the time being. But I am about to talk about probably the biggest twist and biggest thing when it comes to Automata for both the anime and the video game. So I'm giving fair warning right now. If you don't want to know what that is, then either mute or if it's like a VOD, just go ahead, go forward. Jesus. So what we get. So in the video game, right? As you're going through the credits of what the ending is, you actually see the credits stop. And we get our last scene of Pod 053 and I think 142, I think they were, basically being like, okay, you don't like this ending either. Like, I don't like the way that everything ends. Like, everyone fought to live and try to survive, and now they're just dead. That just feels kind of unacceptable to me. That feels like there's something in my circuits that is making me want to not let this happen. The other pod is just like, well, this is protocol. We can't go against our protocol. We just have to do what we're told. It's like, okay, but what if we didn't? And so in the game, what results is, instead of the credits rolling, you destroy the credits, basically destroying the protocol, and because of that, you're able to salvage all the data from the androids in which 2B and 9S, like actual 2B, get to live on, like, happily. Like, they are now the only beings on Earth. They're not held down by the Yoha Project. They're not having to fight machine life forms. The virus is completely gone. There's nothing that is stopping 9S and 2B from living out their lives. In the game, it's insinuated that A2 lives, but I'm not 100% sure if that was the case. But we do get that ending. That is that the ending happens. And so, since the credit part was such a heavy part, I didn't know how they were going to go about that route. I don't know how they were going to do that, right? Because it's like unironically such an impactful moment. Like, it was one of the first times I actually cried at a video game, because one of the things it actually does as well is that, I don't know how it does this particularly, for being honest, but at the very, very, very true ending of the game, you can actually leave a message for, once you're done with the game, leaving the message for anybody who's going through the game. And so, what happens is when you're at that true ending at the credits, you get all these messages flooding in being like, you can do it. I know it's hard, but it's fine. Just keep going. Like, you could go on. I believe in you. Like, it's good to live on. And, like, the whole message of being able to fight and keep living just resonates so hard. It is a very impactful game. It's why it's one of, if not my main favorite game. I've only played it through it once, but that's because my thing was, like, I don't want to taint the save file for what this thing did, and I don't just want to restart. Like, you give up your save file. Like, once you go through that game, you give up your save file, you never touch, and I never touched that save file again. I mean, now I have a PS5, so I can play through it again, right? But in the anime, they actually give their pods a whole scene. Instead of seeing the credits and all that stuff, what we get is, like I said before, the pods stop the protocol, they have their own discussion, and what happens is they actually sit there having a discussion with each other, being like, yeah, I understand that this is protocol, but there's something inside me that I think are emotions that are telling me, like, I want to fight. I want to try to fight for these people's lives. And something interesting that I never thought of, but it was addressed here, and I kind of like the fact that they did it, was the fact that obviously pods can live without their androids. That's just the obvious thing. And so you do wonder where all the other pods go. And so what you find out is that all the pods are still existing, but the pods are the ones that technically knew about the last protocol for the Yoha project. They probably have some type of programming that prevents them from telling their androids what exactly is happening, but they are the last bastion of the Yoha project that is meant to erase everything about the Yoha project and its existence. And so 2B and A2's pod, or 2B's pod that became A2's pod, is carrying 9S. And is deciding, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a space where I can salvage the data and try to reboot and recreate them as best as I can. There's a random pod that actually stops A2's pod, being like, okay, that unit is obviously dead. There's no signal coming from it. So you need to dispose of that immediately and help us come finish the protocol. And it's just like, I acknowledge your request. Nah, I'm not doing that. And it says oh, well, it seems like this pod is defective. We need to go ahead and, terminate it. Which I love that it actually shows, the pod has a final stand scene where all the pods, surround it and ready to gun down. And it sits there and it's just yeah, suck it. And it brings out its big laser trying to fight back. As it's inner monologue, it's 2B, you actually give me something worth fighting for, and I want to try to do that even if it kills me. So, and then a big part is there's the other pod, right? 9S's pod, where A2's pod is okay, can you help me with this? And it seems like it doesn't really give an answer and not able to understand, and so it looks like it floats up with the rest of the pods going away. Only to find out that pod was actually trying to connect to the satellite to make an orbital strike, and just destroyed the rest of the pods that they want to fight. And so that pod's coming back. It's I still don't understand, but what I do know is I want to help you. And I want to try to help you and try to do what I can for you. And so they're fighting together as all the pods swarm them, and they're just trying to they're making their final stand. And then the thing you see is one of the pods, I think it's holding arm or holding something, but in its final breath, bringing the last piece it needs to the 9S and 2B unit that are on top of the roof, being falling to its death with what it can and last muster of strength. And as we see, 9S and 9S and 2B, it's they're there, laying there. Now this is where the anime got me, because in the video game, we never get 9S and 2B waking up. Because I think what the game wants you to do is, we don't ever necessarily know if it works or not. We just know that their bodies are now together, right? That's all we really know when it comes to the ending. At least that's what I took from it. It was just oh, I don't know if they wake up or not. You never visually see them wake up. But in the anime, we do. We see little twitches from each of them. We see 9S take off his black visor, showing the fact that, like, they're not part of the Yohara unit anymore. They're not part of the Yohara project. They don't have to wear the visor. They don't have to follow the rules. They have their own reason for living now. And so you see them both take off their... And it was so nice because it's like you see 9S take off his visor being like, okay, I'm still here. And then you see 2B take off his visor, or her visor. And that got me. That got me so hard. And I was just like, oh, I forgot why I like this show so much. I forgot why I love this story in this game. Because fuck, it's so good. It's so good. And the thing I actually do not remember, and I don't think we get, is the confirmation of A2. This anime gives us that. This anime gives us the confirmation that A2 is, I think at the very least, still out there. Here's the thing, right? We get the confirmation that 9S and 2B, they're alive. They're kicking. They actually can speak to each other. We don't get the same for A2. We get her body and a mysterious person, like, walking off to the horizon as it pans down to A2's body. But we don't physically see A2 wake up. So that's what hurt me. I was just like, oh, God damn it, we don't see A2 wake up. And so I still don't really know if we have a confirmation if A2 is still around. I'm going to say on A2, because that's the best that I could probably give. But overall, man, I loved this. Honestly, going through this entire thing, it does remind me. Well, I sit there and I think there's a couple of things to take from everything here towards the end, right? So, like, with Nier Automata, both the video and the game, for this one. While I don't hate the first part and I don't hate the beginning of the half, I do, honest to God, understand why I was, like, not vibing with it at first, because the beginning game is fine. It's like not. No, problematic is the wrong word to use. I don't know if problematic is the right word. No, it's definitely not the right word to use. What am I talking about? It's not problematic, but it definitely is. It is slow, and I think the purpose of being slow is showing everything. Right? It's showing everything about the Yohara project, about how the whole dynamic between the machines and the androids, how all that operates, and how intense the war has been and all that stuff. And so the second part is going into all the deeper stuff. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's rough at first, and it's definitely a slow burn. But I do love all the little additions, because I don't think we get A2's backstory. The pawn interaction was nice. While I would have liked to see what they would have done for the proper way, not proper, but for the video game way that Pascal died, I do like the way they do it here, leaning in more to the concept of trying to be human more and all that stuff, and falling victim to the human attributes that they try so hard to mimic themselves. So, which is still technically true, right? Because in the video game, Pascal teaches his robots all about, like, emotions and fear and everything like that, which does lead them to dying in the factory. Because she sat there, that's not a she, it's a guy, it's actually a guy. He sits there and he's like, yeah, if I never taught them that, they probably would have actually fought and survived. But instead, they didn't. They were just scared. And it's still the same thing here, where the virus affected all of them and that robot ate all of them and they died. But it's on the same thing. I taught them fear. I taught them emotions. And if I didn't teach them what emotions were and how emotions worked, this probably wouldn't have happened. There probably would have been a more logical conclusion to come out of this. But unfortunately, that's not the case. That's just not what happens at all. Which is sad. It's really sad. But, Jesus fucking Christ. But my other big thing coming out of this, and it's something I would like to make a video about, and something I should probably talk about as well, is what depicted and explained the story better. Because I will fully admit the way Yoko Taro does it in the video game, you'll eventually get it, but man, is it harsh is it harsh. It is definitely one of those, like, it comes off as artsy-fartsy. It's just like, look at how the way I do this, and the metaphors are so deep and yada, yada, yada. And, like, I get that, but man, I'm not gonna lie, it made it so hard to consume. It made it difficult to consume that shit in the video game. And it wasn't until the very end, like, you just, everything clicked. Now, part of that I do enjoy because you get that wave of emotion of just finally understanding everything, and then everything in the story starts to connect, right? But there was something good about the way the anime does it, where it's not as it's not as complexity. The storytelling isn't as complex as it would be in the video game. The anime tells it a bit more straightforward, if I'm being honest, especially with the 9S and A2 paths, where you see him falling more into being lonely and isolated and having to deal with that. But in A2, kind of reigniting that flame of like kindness and understanding and being able to understand what it meant to have a family and what it meant to actually love somebody and what those loved ones want for you and all that stuff. And so getting to the end of that, it was a very satisfying ending because you were there through the entire thing. You got to understand it a bit more and how it did it. And like, there's also just certain things that I think each part like benefits from. So like the video game, right? The video game of Nier Automata is, I think there's a way to get more invested into it. Because you're playing it. You're putting in that time in order to, like, it feels like you're on that journey with them, especially since there are so many just different little side quests that add to the lore of, like, the world of Project Yorha, Project Exalt, all that stuff, right? It adds into that whole just fucking lore of shit. And so you get more connected, you get more invested. But there are also storytelling beats in the anime that I think are, like, really enhanced because it's having to be told in an anime format, not in a video game format. So, like, Popola and Devola, I think, get better treatment in the anime than in the video game. Because for them, their segment is just kind of a box of text, which, understandable, it's supposed to be like a log. But it does help seeing it visually of them, like, you know, and, like, not only does having it visually, but just how they do it. Because obviously Popo and Devola, they do the little sacrifice, but we don't really see anything after them. I think once A2 gets to the tower, they're just already dead, and A2 gives them a glance, and then she runs off into the tower. Whereas, at least in the anime, A2 actually walks up to Devola after Popola died, and it's constantly, like, repeating, like, oh, were we useful? Did we pay for our sins? Oh, were we useful? Did we pay for our sins? Oh, were we useful? Did we pay for our sins? And it's like, it's one of those things that is a bit harder to watch because you see beforehand too that it's like, oh yeah, they were, you know, they were blamed for humanity's downfall. They were supposed to be the Watchers. That didn't work. So you see them as like, we're just constantly trying to atone for our sins. We're constantly trying to fix all this shit and fix how we feel and fix this and fix that and trying to better ourselves and all that stuff. So I get it. I get why someone would like the anime a bit more, but also like someone... The video game and the anime have their own strengths, but it's one of those things of just which one is the one that I think is the, like, superior consumption of it. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't have an answer right now. That's something, because I only just finished this watching that, like, literally less than 12 hours ago. I have no clue where I put this in. I might have to play through the game, realistically, in order to give that answer, because I don't right now. I just do not have an answer. But in terms of the episode of the show, it was good. It was really good. If I had to give a whole show the ranking, if I'm being honest, I am kind of stuck between an 8.5 and a 9. I don't think this was like a complete masterpiece. I think there's something for me that's like holding it back, but I at least think it deserves either 8.5 or a 9. No, I made me cry multiple times. I think that was my biggest fear for me, is that if That was my biggest fear, is if I was still gonna have that emotional impact, and I did. So yeah, I think I'd give it a 9. Yeah, I think I'd give it a 9. Yeah, Neir deserves a 9, because you know what? That shit is good. It did a really good job adapting everything and giving you the little tweaks and fixes it needs in order to fit an anime format or a storytelling format like that. So I appreciate it. I appreciate what it did, and I appreciate what the team did, and I appreciate what Yoko Taro did. That bitch getting 8 out of 9. 9 out of 10. Alright, and the last one for today, since we're only doing 3 anime, like I said, is Mayonaka Punch. And the last 2 for Osho No Ko and Neir Automata was so good, and I was so happy how it turns out. I'm glad we have one more episode of Osho No Ko, so I could sit there and be like, oh, I get to consume more Osho No Ko. But Mayonaka Punch, man, if I'm being honest, I feel like this one dropped the ball a little bit, but not too harshly, right? So it starts off where we ended the last episode, where it's Ichiko, Fu, Tokage, and Yuki all announcing the fact that they're vampires and they're about to play a game of tag with the vampires that are now approaching the hospital and whatnot. And so they have their big chase, doing all that stuff. Masaki is currently just taking care of the stream, doing all that stuff. And she's just watching over. She's like, we're doing this while Live is here. This is insane, and like all that. And like she asks Fu, like Fu comes by and she's like, hey, is everything cool with the stream? It's like, yeah, but like, why'd you guys reveal your vampires? And it's like, wouldn't Mike get mad? And she's just like, look, nobody believes it. Which is funny, because they had a stream, they had videos of them flying around and being vampires. I don't know if anyone believes that, but like, there's at least video of them doing this, so someone would probably get suspicious, but, you know, I digress. That's whatever. But they're having this big game of tag, and I thought this was going to be, like, the whole episode, right? I mean, it kind of was, but not in a way, sort of, kind of, whatever, right? So the 4 vampires are going through with their own stuff, right? It starts off with Tokage trying to not get caught. Eventually, she gets caught, put into a coffin. She ends up gone. Then there's Fu, which is funny because she's the one that's like, oh yeah, I promise you I won't get caught. And so she talks to the screen, being like, hey, Masaki, blah blah blah. You know, don't worry, I got this. Like, Live's gonna come back and do her shit, yada yada yada. And so Fu tries to is like charging at the person. We don't even see her fight. She's just gone. She's completely gone. Then she sees Ichiko, and Ichiko's like running around trying to avoid anything. And Masaki's just done trying to take care of the screen, right? So eventually she goes to where Ichiko is because she knows through the location. And now she starts running with her. And so they're trying to avoid the vampires as best they can, jumping over steps, dipping and dodging or whatever. And eventually they get into like an outside, like, you know, dilapidated area of the hospital where the vampires are there covering them, and one of them charges, but Yuki ends up protecting them, giving them a chance to like run away and like find a hiding spot. They eventually do in one of the hospital rooms, and it seems like Ichiko is actually like injured and sitting like that, and she's like, you gotta keep the stream going. I don't want to go away. I want the vampire matter to stay. Like, fucking goddamn. Like, automatically she's being a child, which is like, you know, that's all she really can do is be a child. And she's like, oh, I'm going to sleep now. Like, yeah, like a rest will be fine. I actually don't remember exactly how Ichiko gets caught, but I know Yuki gets caught because she's just outdone by the vampire, and eventually gets put away. Like, we see her get like knocked out. You realize why I said knocked out like this, huh? So we see like all that unfold, all that like sort of kind of happen, and now it's just Masaki. Masaki is the last one that hasn't been caught, and she's trying her best to like keep the stream up, but she's getting all these comments of just like, oh yeah, the stream is lag, blah blah blah, yada yada yada, and like while looking at that and seeing that, she's having her own breakdown. She's like, you motherfuckers, can't you see like we're fucking trying here? It's like, and like getting mad at Liv, like Live, you're supposed to be here and you're not, and she's going through this whole just bad moment. And then she sees a comment from the girl that she ran into while she was at that that hot spring massage resort place, right? Ugh. And she sees that she is actually like making comments, like she's throwing some shade again, and she's just like, and then now she's like really confused. She's like, okay, you were supposed to be, you were so cool when I met you, and you said I was a fan, and you got your picture and all this stuff, but now you're sitting here and you're like insulting me. What the fuck is going on? And she sees an actual comment from Sakura being like, I will always be Masaki's fan. And there comes like I want to say like sort of an epiphany in a sense, where it's just like, I mean, like, I could have told you that, girl, and I know Tokage told you that, but I mean, I guess, that's fine. Where like, she sat there and she's just like, wait, yes, there's a lot of comments that are mean, but I also have supporters, and honestly, a lot of people who are mean are probably actually just trolling and saying like, and I can't differentiate which is which. Like, it's hard and sucks, but like, I like, why worry about that? Is it something I'm kind of overreacting with? And like, to an extent, I wanted to say yes, but I know comments like that can be bad. And I also know that like, as humans, we fixate a lot of bad stuff than good. That's why it's one of those things where it's like, I get what you're going for here. I'm just like, going off the like, she kind of overreacted with her panicking and stuff like that. But like, I could understand being overwhelmed and attacked in such a way, especially on like the level Masaki was. It did genuinely kind of suck to go through, but eventually she goes on her little like, not sprint, but like she starts avoiding the vampire, playing her own game tag, and she's like now on screen. She's still struggling to read all the comments that are funny again, but she's diving and waving, dipping and dodging, and being like, listen, we need to get to 1 million subscribers. I need you guys to share the stream, yada, yada, yada. And we do see a cool moment where the dude who threw that YouTube collab event of like a few episodes ago ends up sharing and reposting the live stream. And so they actually do get like a big influx of people. I think it was like 10K people. It's like, man, that's just like a goated amount to have at that level. And so like, the stream is getting bigger. She's avoiding as much as she can. And eventually she ends up on the rooftop, where there's like not really a place to go. And the person who's a vampire, and I already said this before, like, man, wouldn't this suck if it was a prank? So the person on the roof asks Masaki, why do they make videos? Why do I want to be in camera? And she gives the answer like, obviously it's for like their own sake. It's for their own sake. They want me here. It's like, no, why are you here though? It's like, oh, because I was told to be here. Like, no, why are you here? And eventually, in front of the whole like live stream, she's also like gushing and like trying to blurt out. I'm not gushing, but she's like, she's panicking, she's blurring out random words. But eventually, she finds a crack and she's like, you know what? Fine. I really like being on camera. I find it entertaining. That's all I wanted, and that's all I ever like want to do. Is because I find this enjoyable and I find this nice. I'm happy doing this. And so she's just like, and I'm not going to stop doing it. I'm just going to do everything I can to fight. And so what she does is she actually leaps from the roof trying to get to the other one. She doesn't make it, obviously. But eventually, we get Live. And Live swoops in and saves Masaki. And she's talking to Masaki. She's like, oh, man, it was so good to hear you say all that, blah, 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 blah. And Masaki's like, oh, man, I'm glad you were like, wait, heard all that. Say it to your face. I did do that? Why did I do that? And this is where I kind of sat there, and I was just like, oh, okay, I guess. Where we find out the whole thing is a prank, and it was a collab prank between Mayopon, Hype Sis, and I forget those two dudes that are crushing on Tay and crushing on. But all of them came together to basically prank Masaki, try to get her back on camera. Masaki, being not far from her old ways, gives Live a wicked right punch, a wicked one. But basically explains that like they'll show the nitty gritty of how they like did everything and all that. But they did want everyone to know that it was a prank and that it wasn't serious and yada yada yada. Listen, I get what the show is and I understand, but you have set up precedents to actually have those emotional episodes. So that's why I was kind of hoping that you would get to this point, but you didn't, and it was like, oh, okay. Cool. Alright, sure, I guess. Why not? Fine. Right? It's like, yeah, it was a prank, it's sure, but I feel like losing that emotional package is ass. I mean, like, it means like they still have the 1 month deadline to try to hit 1 million, but it's also just kind of like those, I mean, like, great, awesome, fuck me, I guess. Which, I get her frustration. Which also, she I'm assuming it's a joke, but she, like, null and voids their deal. But eventually she's like, I'll reconsider bringing it back in. Which is like, I sat there, I'm just like, okay. Alright, I see what we're doing here. They also, I thought this was going to be like a one and done season. Which, if I'm being honest, should have felt like a one and done season. But instead, we get all these little clips of like, little parts of like where everybody is and whatnot. And even Mother, when Yuki says like, oh yeah, like yeah, we were vampires, but like no one believed that you could see the stream. And Mother's even amused, like, that human is something interesting, isn't it? And so like, it kind of sort of sets up like a, oh yeah, we'll get a second season if we did, but if we don't, then it's fine, I guess. Because they don't hit 1 million yet, which makes me assume that like, we're probably going to get another season, which I don't mind another season of my up on, if we get more stuff, or Mayonaka Punch. But this just felt kind of weird. Like, it felt like it was a sloppy ending, honestly. And I praised so many episodes coming up to this that I was so hyped, but this kind of fell flat. Kind of back into that, like, 6 range, if I'm being honest, that all the other shows were at. So, I mean, that's where I'm standing with it at the very least. Like, because it's not bad. I won't go far to say it's bad, but it was definitely odd. It was definitely odd being there. Odd. It was definitely odd being there. Just like, okay, alright, okay, as you wish, but fuck. So yeah, that was a bit weird to me. And we don't get much resolve. We don't get, Jesus Christ, I threw off my whole phone. We don't get much resolve from it, which kind of sucks. But, you know, I don't know. Sometimes it is how you leave them. And man, that finale episode, like, again, we're getting a second episode, so we may get more, which I think Live also does admit that, like, oh no, that part was true. Like, her past and her, well, okay, actually, that's not true. I think there was someone named which was true, but I think she mentions it's true, but, like, they kind of just brush over it, which is it's so weird. It's so weird how they handled the thing, the episode, because they've done deep episodes before, so I don't know why this one wasn't deep, and they just decided to make it a prank. It like, low-key actually kind of bothers me. The only other interesting thing I think we get from this is the fact that, like, we do get a flashback of Liv, who is basically, like, she didn't want to be a vampire anymore, and she tried to go in the daylight, but she ended up, you know, frying, and so she's in her bat form. And apparently, a young Masaki actually goes up to, like, the bat, and it's like, oh, a talking bat. And it's like, here, you may bite me. So apparently, Life has had a bite of Masaki before, and apparently, it was after that she slept for, like, 20 years. And so, like, that's the reason she likes the blood, is because, you know, she tasted that in the Brick of Death, and she was just like, oh my god, that blood is so good. So, like, yeah, that was kind of interesting, a little bit, if I do say so myself. But yeah, that is it. So, like, no rankings this week, honestly, there's no rankings this week. Just because there's only 3, so it's, like, not really a point, honestly. Hold on. Okay, yeah. But yeah, no rankings this week. Just a full whatever. Not whatever, but it's like a full shit, you know what I mean. Yeah, everything is fine. I should put out some video on what animes I'm going to be watching. If you guys are curious about what animes I'm going to be watching for next season, we're going to have leftovers. So I know next week we will be talking about Oshi No Ko, and we will talk about Atari, because I tried to wait to see if it was going to come out this morning. Atari did not come out. I think it comes out on Sundays. So we will have Atari and Oshi No Ko to talk about next week, which we'll do it towards the end, like later in the stream. I have not picked which 10 animes. I know I want to do ReZero, and I'm currently going through that second season because I watched it halfway and I forgot I didn't watch it. I'm going through Blue Lock. I might go through Shangri-La. I don't know. If I have time, I might go through Shangri-La, but I know I do want to watch Uzumaki, and I know there's a couple of things that I'm going to watch that seem pretty new, pretty interesting. I think Blue Box is on there, which is like a badminton romance anime, which that sounds kind of interesting. But yeah, that is where we're going to leave off everything for today. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed us. Remember to follow me and follow InvideoCast. Look at everything else I do on my social media and check out the description for everything. And I will see you guys in the next stream. Peace!